So welcome to The Real Build. I'm your host, Bill Reiman, your broker builder. And today I have a guest coming from nearby Clearwater, Florida. Prior to starting his own practice, he was an associate attorney at one of the largest lender foreclosure firms in Florida. There he learned how to prosecute foreclosures quickly and efficiently, representing lenders such as Freddie Mac, the Department of Veterans Affairs, Chase, Countrywide, and many other subprime lenders in all aspects of foreclosure, litigation, bankruptcy, and loss mitigation negotiations. In 2004, he left the plaintiff side of the practice to form a law firm focused on helping homeowners keep their homes. After building a successful multi-practice firm, he founded Yesner Law, again, with the focus of helping homeowners save their homes or get rid of their homes while incurring minimal liability. His experience at two successful big firms, both plaintiff and defendant, allows Yesner Law to represent its clients with big firm experience at small firm prices. He's also a speaker, an author, and a podcast host. Shawn Yesner, welcome to The Real Build. Thank you for coming on. How you doing today?
Good. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Yeah, I'm glad you can come on. Like me and you talked about before the show started, I'm looking forward to this because obviously you cover a lot of the department that I'm in as far as construction and real estate. So I'm looking forward to dropping some value here for my customers and my listeners that are all real estate people or looking to buy real estate or build homes. So glad you're on here. So.
Yeah.
Awesome. So I like to get started with, I always ask everybody this first question about your background. So let's talk about who is Shawn Yesner.
So I think the first thing is I am a true legitimate Florida native. So I was born here in Tampa, raised in Miami. I moved down to Miami before I was one, or right around when I was one. My parents moved down to Miami, which is where they finished high school and whatnot. So I grew up in Miami. Went to Florida State undergrad, and then left the state of Florida to go to Birmingham, Alabama, law school called Cumberland School of Law, part of Samford University up in Birmingham, Alabama. And so that was really the only 3 years I spent outside of the state of Florida. Other than that, you can take the boy out of Florida, but you can't take the Florida out of the boy. So I'm a legitimate, true, born and raised in Florida native.
Nice. Yeah, that's a rare thing down in this state, as you know. You never, I mean,
Yeah.
I've been down here pretty much my whole life. I'm originally from Illinois, but yeah, it's rare to find a true Floridian these days down in this state, as you know. Very seasonal.
My wife is from Indiana, so she moved down here when she was in high school. Although both of our boys now, having been born here in Clearwater, actually, so both of my boys are also Florida natives as well.
Oh, nice. There you go. Well, let's dig a little deeper into you, because I mean, how did you get started? So you're in law. How did you get started in it? What was your reason for choosing to, get into law over other industries? So let's go into that. What got you started in it? Why did you choose?
Do you want the story that I tell publicly, or do you want the real story?
Let's hear the real story.
So I a lot of times I joke. My father is a CPA. He's now retired. He's been retired as we record this, probably about 6-7 tax seasons. He's been retired, although hopefully he's working on my tax return right now. But he was a CPA, is a CPA, had his own business. So there's always this sense in my family of, when you graduate high school, what college are you going to go to? When you graduate college, what advanced degree are you going to get? It was sort of just a way things were. There's a lot of doctors in my family. There's a lot of CPAs in my family. There's a lot of professionals in my family. Ironically, I'm the first attorney, but there's a lot of professionals in the family. So there was always that sense of, what do you want to do? What profession, what career do you want? And so my senior year in high school, I took a law class as one of my electives. And one of the projects that we had to do for that law class, was interview an attorney and do a report for the class on the attorney that we interviewed. Well, with my dad's connections, he set me up with a tax attorney who had actually argued in front of the United States Supreme Court. And so I went out to his office and I interviewed him, and I thought it was fascinating. He had started as an IRS attorney representing the IRS against taxpayers, and then switched sides and started defending taxpayers against the IRS. And that's what led to his appearing in front of the U.S. Supreme Court. And I just thought it was fascinating the way that he did his career, followed his career. And so I've told people that since high school, I've known I wanted to be an attorney. The other story that I tell, which also has some truth to it, the other story that I tell is that in that law class, we had our school's mock trial team. And so the teacher had 3 law classes throughout the day. And so each one of the 3 law classes had a mock trial. And then she took the best people from that mock trial to be on the school's mock trial team. And so for my class, my role was the attorney for the plaintiff to do the direct examination of the plaintiff, to get the plaintiff on the stand and ask him questions to prove up the plaintiff's case. And so I didn't know what I was doing. I mean, today looking back on it, I had no clue what I was doing, but I sat down and I wrote out some questions and I wrote out some answers, and we drilled and we practiced. And then when it came time for the trial, I got the witness on the stand and I asked him the questions, and I thought we did a great job. I don't even remember if we won or lost the trial, but I thought we did a great job. Well, the teacher picked my witness to be the school's mock trial witness because of the job he did. And so I got so mad at that. I said, I'll show you. And so, maybe a part of my career is also based on spite. But I've known, like I said, since high school, I've known. My undergrad degree was in accounting, and that was purely for, 2 reasons. Number one, I had a free tutor in dad at home who, anytime I had an accounting question, I could give him a call. But number two, I always have been drawn to numbers, and had law not worked out, I probably would have gone on and got my CPA and become a CPA. I did graduate with a degree in accounting. I'm not a CPA. I'm not qualified to be a CPA. I'm not even qualified. I need to take some additional classes if I were to want to sit for the CPA exam. But the accounting backgrounds come in really helpful, especially as we get into more of what the law firm does. Having that numbers background has been a huge help to me.
Oh yeah, I guarantee having that numbers background. I mean, in any business too. I mean, having accounting, it's a hard degree to have too. But I mean, hearing your story, I mean, it's how you went from growing up in the family you did to being in law. It's actually pretty cool to hear. I mean, I came from a background in construction. I've always grown up in it, to be honest. When I was a kid working in it, I hated it, and
Right.
and I've said this in the past too. I mean, with my story, digging ditches and doing stuff like that, I just never thought I would be in the business I am. And now I'm in construction and real estate because you learn it. And that's kind of what you did. You knew something, you branched off into another, and it's benefited you tremendously too.
Yeah, well, very similar to, my dad was a partner in some of the largest CPA firms
Hmm.
in the world. And at one point, the firm that he was at ended up shutting down. And so he went off on his own with 3 of his other partners and formed a CPA practice. The
Okay.
attorney that he had me interview in high school worked for the IRS and then went off on his own and switched sides. And so my career mirrors that as well. I mean, like you said in the bio, I went into law school wanting to use the accounting background to work for the IRS, to be an attorney for the IRS. That was my goal going into law school. I got into law school and I caught the litigation bug, and so I wanted to be in court and I wanted to be doing opening arguments and cross examinations and all that kind of stuff. I came out of law school, and the first guy that offered me a job did real estate, and so I'm a real estate attorney. And that transition then to a job here in Clearwater in 2001, working at what we would call a foreclosure mill. You said in the introduction, working for Freddie Mac and Chase and some of the largest prime and subprime mortgage companies, taking away people's houses. In 2004, the boss said, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm shutting the firm down. And so, very similar to that attorney I interviewed, very similar to my dad's career path, I was faced with a choice. 6 years out of law school, and I said, what the heck? Let me switch sides and see if I can slow down foreclosures. And that was the birth of the law firm.
Nice. Yeah. And that was getting into my next question right there. So in 2004, you founded Yesner Law, again, with the focus of helping homeowners save their homes or get rid of their homes while incurring minimal liability. So just explain this a little bit more in detail, going off of what you were just saying.
Yeah. So when I joined that foreclosure firm in 2001, that gave me exposure. Prior to that, I was working in Miami and I really only knew title,
Hmm.
closings, transactional kind of stuff. But getting into that foreclosure firm, I learned a lot about litigation. I learned a lot about civil procedure. I learned a lot about bankruptcy, evictions, title claims, title issues. I learned all about that aspect of the real estate. My fastest foreclosure from list pendants until foreclosure sale was 97 days. And so when the boss shut down the firm, I thought to myself, well, I know how to do them quickly. And
Hmm.
again, this is '01 to '04. So this was, you would get the valuation of your property in the morning, and if you got a second valuation of the property at night, it'd be 10 grand more. So houses were appreciating quickly, reinstating loans was easy, resolving foreclosures was easy. But still, it was that aspect of, I know how to do them quickly. Let me see if I can turn all that on its ear and slow it down. Not in a sense of, I'm one of these defense attorneys. I don't buy into the standing arguments, and I don't buy into the who holds the loan and robo signing and all that stuff that we encountered in the recession starting in 2007 2008. And part of the reason is because none of that stuff impacts how the whether the borrowers did or did not make their payments. And so that's what I'm really getting at. Can I throw some monkey wrenches into the foreclosure long enough to get my clients to a resolution? Can I throw the monkey wrench in there long enough to get them a loan modification, to get them a short sale, to get them into a bankruptcy and use the bankruptcy to resolve the house situation? It's not delay for the purposes of delay. It's delay for the purposes of getting to a resolution for the client. And so that's the basis upon which I built the law firm.
So pretty much you were a busy guy in 2008 when everything.
Yeah. And unfortunately, I think I'm going to be busy for
Yeah.
the rest of this year and next year as well, but we'll see.
Yeah, yeah, and then we're gonna get into that a little bit too, because that's, I mean, right now is the time, and me and you were talking about it before this, that it's a lot of uncertainty out there too, and hopefully, pray that this doesn't last as long as they're saying, and we get this whole thing fixed. But yeah, unfortunately, like you said, I think some,
Yeah,
you
and,
know,
and people have asked me my thoughts, and I'm sort of keeping them to myself because it's a highly charged, highly emotional situation. So my personal feelings, my personal observations, I really don't think any of us are going to be able to gauge what is true, what is overhyped, what is underhyped. I don't think any of us are going to be able to gauge that until this whole thing is over and behind us, and then we can make up our minds. But I think at this stage, better safe than sorry.
hmm. I highly agree. And I mean, a lot of people have opinions on it too. Nobody really knows what's going to happen. I mean, you can listen to the media, you can listen to, go on CNBC, listen to some of those guys on there. I mean, everybody's going a different direction. So I think that's what's making people a little bit more crazy, to be honest, because everybody has a different opinion on what's to come. We don't know what's to come. I mean, uh, it's hard to predict. I mean, we got an election coming up in November. Is he going to try and solve everything by that election time? It is politics too. We hope everything gets solved a lot faster than that, because unfortunately, there's a lot of businesses that are going to go out of business, and a lot of people may start losing their homes because it's like that domino effect, as you know. So.
Yeah, here locally, the malls are shut down. Well,
Hmm.
you think about that small business owner that has, finally got enough money. They've got their store in the mall. The mall's closed for 30 days. They've got literally no revenue coming from that store for 30 days. I have a feeling that when the malls reopen, or even if the malls reopen,
Hmm.
uh, the stores that were there when it shut down may not be there. I hope they are for the sake of the economy, but realistically, they may or may not be there when those malls reopen.
And it's like, it's the unfortunate thing is it's that domino effect that the store owner doesn't pay the landlord does pay or the mortgage company, and then the mortgage company is talking to people like you. So it's just, or not, or the landlord's talking to people like you. So it's just that domino effect, unfortunately. I mean, if they could knock this thing out and that sooner period, which I know they're trying to, but there's so many question marks that are out there too. It's just, you, like I said, you can't even watch the news because you see I was talking about this on somebody else's podcast the other day. You turn on the news and all you see is a red bulletin going across saying pandemic, and they're just, it's just try, everything is negative, everything is scared to, and then they have an actual tracker on the side of some of these news channels now of deaths, infections, and this and that, and it's all in red. They don't have the cured people, they don't have, and there's still, as we know, there's a lot of testing, that still needs to happen for people, and it's crazy, it's crazy
Oh, yeah.
times right now.
And that was one of the things that we faced in the Great Recession back
Hmm.
in 2007, 8, and 9 is that, I used to joke when it was over that every day I'd open up the paper and do a little happy dance because it was another article about how the market was crashing or this was crashing or the other. Now, I would never do that for this pandemic because that's loss
Hmm.
of life,
Hmm.
I am a firm believer in, not taking in as much negative publicity. Not to say that it's not real, not to ignore it, not to skirt safety. None of that. It's not from that perspective. It's just from a perspective of there's only so much negative I can take in a day
Oh yeah.
before I'm exhausted at night with the amount of stuff that I do here in the office, and the last thing I need is negativity to come in. And I'm almost thinking about a break from Facebook just to avoid the negativity, not because I don't believe it's true, not because I want to bury my head in the sand, just because I don't want the negativity bearing down on me 24/7.
No, I highly agree. I mean, and I think it really does pull you away from the good things you can be doing or the accomplishments you can be making in business too. I mean, I'm gonna have, I don't really ever watch the media, to be honest. Like times like this, you kind of get drawn to it, which it's weird. You want to see what's happening, so you kind of have to turn it on. But on other forms, I don't even watch it because it always is negative. Why aren't they talking about the nice family of dolphins swimming through the sea anymore? Or, but it's just, oh, they'd rather show you something, like this person got shot and killed here, this, and this. So, I mean, I think we're going through an interesting time. I think a lot of social media stuff, like you said, there's more people on social media than any time before. Especially in past epidemics and past health crisis too. There wasn't as much social media, which spreads a lot of negativity, and a lot of more people are in touch with everything too. And if whatever this is, if it is just a flu or if it is something serious, obviously social media is 10x'd it to people's
Right.
fear. That's the thing. So, if somebody hears that has a news article, they share it, they say, okay, this is what it is. These people die. It's a basically a streamline effect, and it just goes down and branches out to more and more people. So,
Yeah. No,
anyway.
I agree with you.
But let's get back into that was a big topic, obviously, right
A little
there.
bit of a tangent there.
Yeah. Let's get back into talking about you and law. So let's talk about the different types of law you do. As far as the debt alternatives, real estate bankruptcy. I went on your website; these were your highlights. So let's just brush on these real quick.
Yeah, so it all sort of stemmed out of the foreclosure defense. So at least at the beginning, it all started
Mhm.
with the foreclosure defense. Well, you can't understand how to do a foreclosure defense without understanding how bankruptcy might impact, slow down the foreclosure. Are we going to use a Chapter 7 and get rid of the debt? Are we going to use a Chapter 13 and save the house? So the foreclosure leads into the bankruptcy. The foreclosure also leads into the loan modifications because we need to understand how to walk our clients through a loan modification. What
Mhm.
documents are they presenting? All that kind of stuff. Also brings about issues of short sales, which, again, I don't want to get off on that tangent again, but at least I only have, I think, 1 or 2 short sales pending in the office right now. I'm anticipating some more as the year goes on, but you can't understand how the foreclosure works without understanding how the short sales are the solution. So everything sort of grew out of that. once I got into learning more and more about bankruptcy, bankruptcy, I tried to separate myself by saying bankruptcy is not the tool. It's not the hammer that fixes, if you see everything's a nail, then you're always going to try to use a hammer. So, what other options are there other than bankruptcy? And that's where we get into some of the debt settlement and negotiating with creditors, and you proving that if somebody is uncollectible because all their stuff is exempt, then maybe we don't need a bankruptcy. We just use it as another tool in the toolbox to help people that are facing debt. And so the way the firm is built, the way the firm has grown, is that everything sort of, I guess, spirals out from there. In other words, I'm not going to do family law because, number one, I have family law attorneys that refer business to me. But number two, it doesn't fall within foreclosure. There may be foreclosure issues in terms of a family law case. I'm not going to do probate and estate planning law because, again, that doesn't impact whether you can or can't file bankruptcy. So, and again, I have, probate attorneys and estate planning attorneys that I can refer to. So I try to keep to what I know, which is helping people eliminate debt. And so that's why the law firm is set up the way it is. And it's, like I said, it's an area that I've come to enjoy. It's an area that I think legally is fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
I like negotiating with people. I like helping people. One of the ways that I know I've done a good consultation, one of the ways that I know I've helped somebody is if they leave here telling me, thank you, I think I can finally sleep tonight. Or, thank you, I feel like I understand what's going on and I feel like I know what my options are. That's what drives me. So that's why, I don't really ever foresee me deviating from any of these tracks, so to speak. If I get stuff that's outside of that focus area, I've built a network of attorneys that I can refer to.
Yeah, and I mean, you're also in an area that you're helping people with the biggest investment of their life. I mean, and it's you're helping people with something so personal too. I mean, it's so important what you're doing. That's the major part about it,
Yeah,
obviously. So, and I want to go. Let's start talking a little bit more about real estate and construction, because obviously that's what this show is about: helping people,
absolutely.
showing people what to look for as far as real estate and construction industries. So, throughout your legal career, you have guided numerous clients through some major real estate hurdles. So, let's just explain how you've done this in a few ways.
In terms of, I've tried to set myself up that I'm not the type of attorney that wants to kill your deal. I'm
Got
the
it.
type of attorney that wants to help you get your deal done. Now, if from a legal perspective, this is a bad deal and you shouldn't do it, I'm going to tell you that. But at the same time, I think I try to be in my practice more solution based. So,
Okay.
I had a client call me yesterday on a construction issue. It was a friend of mine who was building a new house, and the tiles that they picked out were not the tiles that the builder installed. And so I didn't say blow up the deal and try to get your deposit and walk away, but I gave him a couple of tips. First talk to the builder, show the builder, here's what, here's the tile that you showed me that you were going to install in the house, and look down and see what tile was installed in the house. They're not the same, and try to get the builder to,
Mhm.
fix the tiles. If that doesn't work, try to get the builder to give you a credit on the price of the house, drop the price of the house a little bit, and you offer to fix the tiles. The last thing I said, the last option that we talked about the least amount of the time, was sending nasty grams and suing and trying to cancel the deal and all this other kind of nonsense. So I'm really trying to help clients focus on getting to that ultimate solution rather than just fighting for the sake of fighting.
Which is awesome too, because I mean, a lot of clients don't take that action of having somebody like you there to guide them from. Because I mean, let's face it, I'm in the building industry, and I deal with a lot of people that they're scared. They think we're gonna screw them somehow, some way. I mean,
Right.
we're more of a custom builder, so. But I still get the arguments of, okay, why is this price versus this price? And it's
Right.
just having somebody, that middleman there like yourself, that can deal with this and kind of calm them down is huge. It really is, because a lot of people freak out. I mean, on that story you just said, I got they gave me a wrong tile. It's probably a cheaper tile. That's, they're trying to screw me on the tile and make
Right.
more money off of me. I could hear it now. and that's where you came in and said, no, let's just work this out. We're not going to pull you out of the deal. We're not going to sue them. That's what more people need.
Right. Now, if we have to, I mean, let's face it, I'm an attorney, so I'm not I'm not
Yeah.
unfamiliar with the way the courthouse works. But if we can avoid that, let's find a
Yeah.
resolution without slugging it out.
Exactly. I mean, that's the way it should be with everybody. But like I said, unfortunately, you got a lot of people that are, because they have been screwed in the past. I mean,
Right.
and we deal with a lot of down here, a lot of second homeowners. They built up north with a builder that might have screwed them. They end up coming down here, and they're worried. I mean, they're kind of wary of what to do, and who's gonna take advantage of me down here, and I always just tell people, do your research. And if you're going to go with a builder, go with one that's been here a long time. They've been there a long time for a reason. They've been in business a long time, because there's a lot of new guys that come and go, and especially now that times, were good. And that's the thing. And you got every guy with a pickup truck that gets in the construction industry. So,
Right. Well,
you
and I think that goes along with, do your due diligence, look
mm-hmm,
up that they have all the proper licenses, look up that they have
mm-hmm,
a Facebook page, a website, look at their reviews.
mm-hmm.
You can even, I don't know if I'm giving away anything or not, but you can also look up a contractor's license with the state of Florida
Yeah.
and see if there's been any complaints filed against them. So look at that kind of stuff as well. But yeah, I mean, dealing with a reputable builder is not I'm probably not giving away
No,
any
go
kind
ahead.
of trade secret, just do your due diligence.
Yeah, and the license thing too. I actually tell people that too, because I go, if a builder's been in court and sued and stuff like that, you could find out. I mean, you can look
Yeah.
that stuff up, so you should be looking that up,
Yeah.
and
That's another good idea. You can also go, you just type in whatever county you live in. I'm here in Clearwater, which is Pinellas County. I live
mhm,
in West Chase, which is in Tampa, which is in Hillsborough County. But all you need to do is go to Google and type in whatever the name of the county, and then clerk of court after that. That'll take you to the clerk's website. I think every county in Florida, at least the majority of them, have free information. You can
mhm.
go to look up different cases that have been filed, put in the contractor's name. And if you see the contractor's file has been a defendant or plaintiff in a lot of cases, that could be a red flag.
Yeah, see, that right there is gold, because I deal with all these people that are shopping some of these builders, and I don't bash anybody. I just say, do your research, look them up. Half of them don't, because they look at the numbers and not the person and not the builder. So that's a whole different topic I've gotten into multiple times. But what you just said was gold. People need to do it.
Thank you.
So, what about real estate? So, you say real estate transactions are time sensitive and involve numerous pieces that must be well coordinated. In many cases, buyers or sellers can benefit from support, guidance, and knowledge of an experienced real estate lawyer. So, how can they benefit?
I think the biggest benefit that I bring to a transaction is the lack of emotion. And
Hmm.
so let me explain that a little bit. So I am not as passionate about the house that's being built, but I am passionate about my clients who are passionate about the house that's being built, or the transaction or the house they're buying or whatever the situation is. So the clients are emotionally invested in what's going on. I am not emotionally invested in the substance of the dispute. I'm emotionally invested in the client. So I want to get the best result for the client. So I think where I and any other attorney really adds value is being able to take the emotion out of the situation and guide the client through what's going on. So I've said to a lot of people, unfortunately, I've had to say a lot of times, if the house is unaffordable, we need to start to think about ways to give it up, either a chapter 7 or a short sale or let the bank take it in foreclosure, whatever. And a lot of people get really upset because that's my house. I can't lose my house. I can't get rid of my house. Well, then that gives me the ability to take a step back and say, I get it, but it's a home. It's brick, it's wood, it's steel, it's drywall, it's paint.
Hmm.
It's a thing, it's a structure. Where you live with your wife, with your kids, with your spouse, with your significant other, that's your home. That doesn't necessarily have to be that pile of wood and steel and brick and drywall and blah 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 blah. So I can help take that emotion out of it, look at something logically, look at something from that third party angle, and give unfortunately, sometimes I got to give them advice they don't want to hear, but at
Yeah.
least I can give it to them in a way that I'm still emotionally invested in the client without being emotionally invested in the substance of what's going on, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. Cause I mean, because you to take it's hard. I mean, what you do is hard, and I give you a lot of credit for it because to deal with something like that where the emotional attachment, most people are emotionally attached to their home. Me as a real estate broker, I deal with it, and especially with pricing a home. If I go in there and say, all right, this home should be at this price because it's a tear down, somebody's going to go like this to me, like, yeah, what you're
What do you
saying,
mean
you're
a
going to
tear
rip
down?
my
Yeah.
you're going to rip my home down, but this is my home. You gotta kind of tell them in a way, listen, this thing isn't worth as much, in a nicer way. There's ways of putting it, long story short. But also on the positive end of what you do too. I mean, the process of dealing with an attorney over, let's say, a title company, I mean, you can streamline them during the whole closing process of a deal.
Yeah, and remember, that's how I got started, was doing
Yeah.
residential and commercial closings, and
Mm,
so I know my way around a closing. It's not not difficult. Um,
yeah.
the difference, I think, so interestingly, I did closings up until about 2 years ago. From the time I started back in 1998 up until about 2017, 2018, I did closings, residential
Hmm.
and commercial closings. A couple of years ago, I decided I owned a title company that I decided to shut down for a couple reasons. Number one, it was getting harder and harder whenever I would compete against other title companies and grow the title company business. The law firm would lose out because I wasn't paying as much attention. When I would focus on the law firm and grow the law firm business, the title company would start to suffer because I wasn't paying as much attention. Plus, I learned that with my knowledge and experience in title, I was getting title companies that were potentially clients that have since become clients and friends. But there was always that angst of, am I going to compete with them? Am I going to take a closing away from them? So I've actually made more representing title companies than I have trying to do closings, at least in the last couple of years.
Hmm.
What a lot of people don't understand is that in Florida, a title company can do your closing, and most of them are good. Most every closing will go forward without any kind of trip ups or snags or whatever. A lawyer can do the closing if they are licensed through a title insurance underwriter. But I think, again, the difference is the title company's role is to get the transaction closed. The title company doesn't represent the buyer or the seller. And I'm not saying, I don't want this to be misunderstood that I'm saying title companies are greedy to get the deal closed, but that's their role in the
Hmm.
process, is to close the transaction. Now they're going to help cure title issues. They're going to help settle disputes between buyers and sellers in some limited capacity. If that kind of stuff comes up, they're going to make sure all the documents are proper. They're going to, do all of that kind of stuff. But if a seller approaches a title company and says, hey, here's my issue, what do you think? The title company can't give them any kind of advice. That's where I'm different. So I will represent either the buyer or the seller, depending on who hires me, and I can walk them through the closing, and I can take a look at all the documents. And so there are other attorneys, competitors of mine, peers of mine, colleagues of mine that will also do closings, and
Hmm.
that's great. But I think the main difference here in Florida between a real estate lawyer and a title company is that the real estate lawyer represents somebody, the buyer, the seller, the title company, even, where the title company's role is to get the deal
Yeah.
closed. And I think that's the biggest difference.
Yeah, yeah, which is a lot of great info right there because I personally use a real estate attorney because it's just there's more to it, and it's more, I feel more as the agent or as the broker, I feel more secure and feel like less, let's say, nothing against title companies, but less bad situations will happen. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, well, and with you being a custom home builder, there may
Yeah.
be some other issues there too.
Yeah, exactly. So, I wanted to kind of just touch on these two real quick. There's people that listen to this that are in a rental properties and investment properties or doing fix and flips and stuff like that. What do you recommend for any kind of legal protection on this?
So I also, part of that, in learning foreclosures, I also got an introduction to the investor community. And so I also do represent real estate investors
Mhm.
in all the different transactions. And so my advice is to use either LLCs or land trusts. So use some other structure. Don't hold rental property in your name individually. And there's a whole bunch of reasons for that that probably are a little bit more than the time we have allotted in today's show. But I would say if you're an investor, your homestead, your primary residence, if you're in Florida, should be in your name individually. I don't see anything wrong with that. Florida has a great homestead protection. But outside of that, if you have rental properties, if you have fix and flips, I would look into LLCs, I would look into land trusts, and then I would even say if you have a certain number of properties that you're going to hold and rent, and then another set of properties that you're going to fix and flip, now you're talking about two LLCs, one for the buy and holds and one for the fix and flips. And that way they don't intermingle. You don't get someone hurt on a fix and flip job that's now going to jeopardize your ownership of your buy and holds. You're not going to get a tenant hurt at the buy and hold that's now going to maybe get access to some of the fix and flip money. And so that I can go, I do offer free consultations. So if any listeners are real estate investors and they want to go over some of this stuff with me, shoot me an email, give me a buzz, and we can go through this in a lot more detail.
Yeah, because if we went into it in a lot more detail on here, we'd be sitting here another hour. So
You don't want 4-hour shows?
yeah. I don't know. Probably the listener might. I don't know if they got a 4 hour car. Oh, actually, they might now because they might be
Yeah.
sitting at home. So
Sitting at home just waiting, looking for something to listen to. Sure.
yeah, exactly. So let's talk construction. Obviously, this is big to me. Building a custom home, and I mean, you brushed on this a little bit, but I want to go deeper for my listener too, is because building a custom home is very costly, a huge investment that people are making. What can a customer do to protect themselves?
So I hate to say this, especially on your show, but I think that for the customer,
Hmm.
seek out an attorney before you sign that custom home
Hmm.
contract. And the
I
reason that
agree.
I say that is as you know, those custom home contracts can be weighted heavily in favor of the builder.
Hmm.
And so talk to an attorney just to read through the contract. The custom home contracts are a lot of times different than the typical contracts that we use to buy and sell already built residential property and commercial property in the state of Florida. There's typically, to a custom home contract, there's a little bit more substance to it. There's more pages to it. Um, I don't know about you, but I know that a lot of custom home builders are not too anxious to change any of those contracts. So if a customer comes to the home builder and says, "Hey, we need to change clause X to say this," the custom home builder may say no, and if you don't like that, I'll just sell this house to someone else. So
Hmm.
I think talking to an attorney, this may be one of the situations where talking to an attorney before you sign the contract is probably a really good idea.
No, I highly agree. I mean, our build contract's probably been to, I don't even know how many attorneys. I know locally every single one's seen it and they still change something on it just to change it, obviously.
Yeah.
And there's stuff, us as a builder will accept, and if they're going to spend the money on an attorney to do it, that's fine and we'll accept it. We usually recommend them going to a Florida attorney because our build code in Florida, as
Right.
instead of taking it to some attorney up in Illinois or New Jersey, and then they just butcher the whole contract because they don't know our build codes.
Right.
So,
Well, and don't misunderstand. I'm not saying that builders try to sneak things into the contract and that
mhm,
builders try to take advantage. I'm not suggesting that at all. I'm sure that the builder contract that you use and probably most builder contracts in the state are fine,
mhm,
but there are quirks that are not
mhm,
necessarily present in a house that's already been built. That if you're not familiar with the contract, you may not know to look for it. You may not spot it if it's there. And so just to be aware of how the timelines work. And like I said, how do I pick out the tile, and if I don't like the
mhm.
tile, what do I do? And those types of issues that people aren't used to when they're buying a house that's already been built.
No, I highly agree with you because I mean, ours has been, like I said, it's been added to by attorneys and it's kind
Yeah.
of built our contract, so our contract's gotten bigger in time. I had just recently, it depends on the person too, because I just had a guy, we do a lot of cost plus, and then I just had a guy that wanted to do cost plus not to exceed. Well, people that are, not familiar with that, that's basically capping our numbers. And there's a lot of uncertainty in a custom home. I know you can probably do that in a track home or something like that where your exact numbers, but in a custom home, when you have to kind of have allowances for certain things on top of you have to for trim carpentry and stuff, when you have a plan that wasn't really detailed enough either, then a decorator might be involved and they're changing ceilings and cabinets. It's hard to do that. And I kept telling this guy that too, especially in uncertain times now that we're going through. What are costs going to do? Is stuff going to inflate in certain areas? Are they going to come falling down? We don't know. So that was a situation with us to where we had to just basically in other disagreements too tell the guy to go somewhere else because
Right.
it just wasn't a right fit.
Right.
So, um, what about the builder side? Me and you were talking about this before you got on. What can a builder do to protect themselves from a homeowner that won't pay them? Let's go from the builder angle.
So I always start with the contract in any kind of real estate dispute. What does the contract say? And so if it's a customer that's not paying, what does the contract say? Does the contract say that you can keep the deposit and cancel the contract and sell it to the next person? Does the contract say that you have to arbitrate or mediate? Does the contract say that you have to sue? Everything's governed by the contract. And a lot of times I'll tell people in a real estate transaction, realtors will call me, home buyers and sellers will call me. Can we do this? Can we do that? Well, you can put anything in a contract as long as it's not illegal. So I make the extreme example that you can say at the closing, we all have to stand on our heads while we sign the documents. Well, it's not illegal to ask for that. So theoretically, you could put that into a contract. And if you had a buyer or seller that wasn't flexible enough to stand on their head and sign the documents, they'd be in breach. Obviously that's the extreme example, but I use it to make the point that as long as it's not illegal, you can put whatever you want in the contract as long as both sides agree to it. So that's always sort of where I start. Florida also has, the contractor lien laws. And so if this is a piece of property and you're built and the owner owns the property and you're building the house on the property, there's always lien laws. You can attach liens and claims of lien and notices of commencement and all those kinds of things to try to foreclose the property ultimately if the homeowner doesn't pay. But I would always start with the contract. What does the contract say you can do?
Yeah, because that's obviously the main thing. And the next one though is big to me. So what about a subcontractor that doesn't finish work? And me and you were talking about this because this recently just happened with us, and you got a subcontractor that's saying, "Well, you owe us the full amount of money," versus us saying, "Well, you didn't finish the work, so we're going to pay you for what you did, and that's it."
Yeah, and I think again, is there a contract between the contractor and the subcontractor?
Mm-hmm.
If so, that's going to control. As the contractor, what I would be worried about is that Florida law gives the subcontractor rights. And so theoretically, if the subcontractor isn't paid, that subcontractor can also put a lien on the house and go after the homeowner directly. And so as a contractor, I would not want my subcontractors to go after my homeowners if I'm not paying them. So you got to take a look at that real closely, because there are also timelines for the subcontractors to be able to claim liens against the house. And as the contractor, my goal would be to try to, I don't want to say protect, but for lack of a better word, protect the homeowner from the claims of the subcontractors. So everything comes down to the contract. I would also document. I would also back everything up. As we discussed today by telephone, and you shoot them an email that talks about what you discussed, or here's a picture of, all the stuff that you've left undone, and here's a copy of the contract, and you have maybe like today's paper laying on the job that shows the date, that shows all the stuff that didn't happen. Documentation, and then going through the contract. But I would be really careful as a contractor to make sure, and I think partially that's why the lien laws are the way they are, is because the Florida legislature said, well, if we put the homeowner in the crosshairs, that should cut down on disputes between the contractor and the subcontractor. So I think that's the biggest red flag that I would suggest to a contractor, is make sure you're not putting your client in jeopardy, and make sure you document everything so that if the subcontractor is not doing what they're supposed to do, you've got good proof, good evidence, and good cause to terminate them.
Yeah, and as far as lien laws, what is it? It's for them to lien a property. How many days do they have?
It's 90 days from the date of last work.
Gotcha.
So, if as we record this, on on a Friday, so, today's March 20 as we record. And so, 90 days from today. So if they say the date of last work was today, and so that also then becomes an issue as well, is, the date you actually did something, Mr. Subcontractor, was the 10th, but it only took till the 20th till we fired you. So does the 90-day period start on the 10th? Does it start on the 20th? And there's some factual issues there as well. So I think documentation for those kinds of purposes is also really useful.
And then what about notice to owners too? Just brush on those.
If I recall correctly, notice to owners have to be given within 45 days, I want to say, within 45 days of either prior to the work starting or even after the work starts, 45 days. So I've had a situation where I was actually representing the sub who did the work, finished the work, and then had to go. And it was a quick job. It took, a couple of days, but then we had to go back and file the notice to owner after the work was done, and then threaten the lien after the work was done. And even though the owner and the contractor came back to me and said, but the work's already done, but the law allows us up to 45 days after to file the notice to owner, and then 90 days after the date of last work to place the lien. And then it's a year to foreclose the lien unless the lien is challenged. And then there's different timelines there as well. So
yeah, because they have to file notice to owner before they can lien a property, pretty much.
Right.
Is what, yeah. And then it has
Right.
to be from the start of the work, or is it the start of the construction? Just
I think it's the start of the construction.
Yeah,
Or the start of the, I think those may even be both the same term. It gets a little factually where we got to dig into the facts a little bit, but that's where, in my case, it was 45 days from the start of the work. And even though the job took a day or two, they still had 40 something days after the work was done to file the notice to owner. So, and it is, the Florida construction lien law is very, very strict. And so if you trip up along the way, as a homeowner, you could be liable to the contractor and the subcontractor. As a subcontractor, you could lose your lien rights. As a contractor, you could lose your lien rights, because the lien law is fairly strict, and you need to comply with it.
And that's why hiring somebody like you, once again, is so important.
There you go.
So let's go into this next one. What are you doing to stand out from the many attorneys in your area? Obviously, we've talked a lot about a lot of great things you're doing, but what are some other things?
Well, and I think that's where I make myself stand out. So first, like I said, I used to represent banks. And so I still think I know how the banks think. And I still represent private individuals that maybe do seller financing. And so now they're stuck with a note and mortgage and a buyer that won't pay them. There are some smaller banks that I still do represent. The bulk of my work is representing homeowners, but I still am in the game in terms of being a plaintiff's attorney. So I can still say to owners that I know how the banks are thinking. And one of the myths that I can dispel right off the bat: the banks don't want your homes. They want money.
Yeah.
Now they'll file the foreclosure if they're not getting money. And right now we got moratoriums and whatnot coming down anyway, but the banks want money. They don't want your home. It is absolutely a myth that someone says the bank just wants my house. So I think that's the first thing I do to try to stand out, is to say, like I said, I'm here to get the deal accomplished. I'm not here to blow it up. I understand how the banks think. I've been on that side of the equation before. I was doing foreclosure defense before it was popular to do so. But then as the firm matured and evolved, that's where the podcast came into play. Every attorney has a blog, but very few have a podcast. And the few of my peers that do have podcasts either don't have one in the area of law that I do. So there's a lot of swapping going on in terms of interviews. And I know one or two local attorneys here that tried to start a podcast in the bankruptcy field specifically, and they didn't get beyond 7 or 8 episodes before they stopped producing content. So that's the other thing, is I've got the podcast, which is a big boost to the SEO of the law firm. And then the podcast you mentioned in the intro, I'm also a self-published author. The podcast is also what helped produce the content to create the book. And both the podcast and the book they're both called Crushing Debt. The podcast is available everywhere. The book is available on Amazon. And so it all sort of feeds together. And so it is a little bit, it's easy to set myself apart when I say I've got a podcast. I'm an author. I'm a published author. And then, just the perspective of having represented the banks before.
Yeah, and all that's huge, and especially you doing podcasting, because I mean, you can use that as a platform to reference things too. Like you can say, if somebody's asking you a question, you can say, "Hey, you want to hear more? Go listen to episode, 200 about when I talked about that on that episode." So it's kind of it's good with SEO and your marketing and stuff like that too. But it's a good reference for you as
Oh, yeah.
well, and it's like you said, nobody else is doing it.
Yeah, it's a great reference and it's a great networking tool. So,
Yeah, yeah.
I mentioned I get referrals from family law attorneys and probate attorneys, and to have them on the show to introduce
Mhm.
them to my audience is another way to motivate them to send me referrals over, the next bankruptcy attorney in town.
Exactly. So let's talk about, some marketing, kind of jumping into that, since we were just where what are some other strategies you're doing as an attorney, and what impact has it made on your business? I mean, I know you've done the book. I know you've done I brushed on it in the intro. I know you've done some speaking too, and so on.
I've done a lot of speaking. I enjoy public speaking, and my public speaking is even, I've been doing it way before the podcast, although the podcast has made it easier to be a public speaker. But I do a lot of public speaking for construction groups, realtor groups. I've done continuing education for the Florida Bar. I've done continuing legal education for other organizations that do it. So I've done the speaking. I think the biggest driver of business to the law firm is the networking that I do. And so I try to stay involved in the community. I'm the president of my homeowners association. And so as soon as we're done with this call, I've got a handful of things here to do at the office. And then I've got a handful of things to do for the homeowners association. And then I can go home. So I'm keeping my name in the community by volunteering for the homeowners association. We talked about the kids. I've got two boys at home. I coach them both in soccer and basketball, and I think my older boy wants to get into baseball, so I'll probably be doing that as well. And then the other traditional networking. I'm in a close contact networking group, a one person per profession networking group. It's called BNI. A lot of people have heard of it. Business Network International. I've been doing that since '04, since I started the law firm. I get nearly 40% of my firm's annual revenue comes from referrals that come out of that group.
Nice.
I'm also, to help stay in shape, I got to keep up with at least as we record this, I got to keep up with an 8-year-old and a 5-year-old. So I do a lot of running, and the run clubs have in fact, the shirt that I'm wearing now, I have the Yesner Law shirt is on the front, and on the back, it's the promotion of the podcast. And I especially bought it and designed it to be super comfortable for runners. And so the runner community here in Tampa has embraced me. Here in Tampa, we just got done with Gasparilla. We have all the different Gasparilla crews. And so I joined a Gasparilla crew.
Nice.
That's another way that I've grown the law firm. A lot of it is by word of mouth and networking rather than internet and SEO.
Yeah, good for you. I mean, that's definitely the best thing too, is, as we all know, getting in front of people, networking, joining different groups, getting your business out there, because you are your business, you are your brand. I mean, that's the thing. You having
Right.
the brand you do is going to attract people to you, which is going to attract people to your business.
Exactly.
Plain and simple. So, one real quick thing I wanted to ask you, because I always ask everybody on my show, is what do you recommend customers do to help customers select an attorney based on, the quality and who you are, versus just going to an attorney for price? Because everybody does this in every business. They shop the numbers and not, the actual, you get what you pay for. I'm such a
Right.
big believer in it. Huge
There,
believer in it.
there's a story of a guy who goes, there's a piece of equipment, a piece of industrial equipment that is shut down, and the business that owns this equipment needs it to function, to generate their product, to fulfill their orders. And so they call the repairman out. The repairman takes a look at the machine, grabs a hammer, hits the machine whirls back to life, and it starts spitting stuff out. And the business is so appreciative. And they say to this repairman, please give us your bill. The repairman pulls out a bill for $1,000. And they say, $1,000? All you did was hit it with a hammer. I want you to break down that $1,000. And so the repairman takes the bill back and he scratches out $1,000 and he scribbles on it and he hands it back to the business owner. And it says, hitting machine with hammer, $1. Knowing where to hit the machine with the hammer, $999. And I think that's sort of the point here is that, I'll quote someone a price and they'll say, well, why is it that price? Well, you're paying for the experience of knowing how to guide you through these things, how to guide you through the foreclosure, the short sale, the loan mod, the construction deal, the real estate transaction. I've been doing this now for 20 years, 20 plus years. I started in 1998 when I passed the bar and graduated law school, or reverse order, graduated law school, passed the bar. And so I think I'm finally at the point where I can say I have enough experience and again, I'm not the most expensive attorney on the block. I'm not the cheapest attorney on the block. I think my prices are fair based on what other people charge. But, what kind of experience does the attorney have? But I think even more important than that is the connection that you make with your attorney. So there's been plenty of clients that it just didn't feel like the right fit, and that's fine. And I hope they find an attorney that they fit with, and I hope that they get their issue resolved, and I hope everything turns out okay. And they're not the right fit with me, and that's fine as well. So, your attorney can have all the experience in the world, but do you feel like you made a connection to your attorney? Do you feel like, they care about you, they care about your case? Do you think one of the things I've really tried to avoid, I brought on an associate attorney in June, and she's been doing great. She's been doing fantastic. She's learning a ton. She's helped the law firm make a lot more revenue, but I've been very conscious of, it's my name on the door. The shirts say Yesner Law. She's not a partner yet. And so I've had to be very conscious of, I don't want clients that where she ends up doing the work on the file, I don't want them to think that I've passed them off to her. I still am involved in all the files. We meet monthly to make sure we're all on the same page as a staff. There's 4 of us here, me, the associate, my assistant, and then a bankruptcy paralegal. So I'm always trying to make sure that I stay involved in all the cases and I know what's going on in all the cases. But, I think the experience, I think the knowledge base, for the real estate investors, I have owned real estate, investment real estate. I sold it all in 2008 and 9 when I saw the crash coming, and haven't jumped back into that particular market yet, but I am a real estate investor. So I know what they're going through. I have dug myself out of debt, so I know what my clients are going through. I have student loans, so I know what my clients are going through. I think all of that is important as well. But again, I think the most important piece is, do you connect with the person you're trying to hire?
No, that's what you just said. Everything's important, what you just said, but that last piece there, do you connect with people? Because I deal with that constantly. And us being in business, I've said this before, we really do want everybody. We want to help as many people as we can, but also, it's, when you pass up, especially in construction, you pass up a house that you can make a X amount of money on. It's hard, and all the time you spend on doing the bidding process and this and that, you just kind of cringe when you're like, all right, this isn't going to work. And that just happened with me. We're not meant to work with everybody. I had to pass up this guy because I knew I had that gut feeling in the future. Is it really worth the money? Is it really worth your time? Because if they're going to be a pain in the future, and it's going to be a lot more headaches and hard work, and and just a lot more pressure on you in the future because you don't click at the beginning, then
Right.
it's almost worth just saying, best of luck to you. I hope you find the right builder and this and that, and good luck, and then the right people will come. So that's what it's all about. I'm big on what you said.
Yeah.
Let's go into you personally. I've been asking everybody this question because I've gotten so many great answers. Is you have built an amazing company and a brand that continues to grow every day. What lessons have you learned throughout your journey that we should all apply to our own business or lives that can help us grow?
That's a really good question. I love that question. I may adopt that question for my show as well. Uh, one of the questions I get asked a lot when you're in some of these networking events and we're going through icebreakers and whatnot, some people will say, what's a piece of advice that you've received that's been impactful on you? And those of you that really know me, my dad is a huge impact on me. I mean, he basically guided my career. I went into accounting because of him. I started my own business because he did. So he's been a huge impact on me. And one of the best pieces of advice that I ever got from him, when opportunity knocks, you don't have to let it in, but you're a fool if you don't at least answer the door. And the way that I've interpreted that is, look at the different opportunities. What different opportunities are coming up? What can you do? I mean, we went off on a tangent of this pandemic, but there's something there to be said where, I may joke about my foreclosure business is going to increase, my bankruptcy business is going to increase, but that's more to me of an opportunity to help a lot of people that are scared right now, that are going through difficult times right now. It gives me the opportunity to help more people. And when I'm presented with different opportunities, do I want to do a podcast? Do I want to do a YouTube page? Do I want to do different internet type marketing? Again, you don't have to let it in, but you're a fool if you don't at least answer the door. So let's talk about the different opportunities. Do I want to partner up with another attorney over here to create a different kind of law firm? What are the opportunities? What are the pros? What are the cons? Do I want to take on this additional line of business? Do I want to take on Chapter 11 cases? Do I want to take on probate cases, family law cases? Well, the answer may be no, but at least let's explore it and take a look at it and see what can develop from it. And so I think for me, that's a piece of advice that he gave me. My dad gave me a long time ago. And I've always tried to have that sort of playing in the back of my head as I look at, what's going on? Where is the law firm going? Where are we expanding? Even within, so right now we've outgrown our space and I've got about a year left on my lease. My landlord is not the most attentive landlord. There are some maintenance things that he could keep up on. But maybe that gives me an opportunity to pick up the neighboring suite that's been empty for 2 years since we moved in, pick it up for very cheap considering what I pay in rent, absorb that, grow the law firm, and get into a bigger space. Or is that going to hurt the law firm because that still means the building is dilapidated and maybe we need to move entirely? So all those, that I just use that as an example of all the different things that fly around in my head from day to day that prevent me from getting a full night's sleep.
And as usual, great answer. I mean, that question, I always get different answers, but I'm the same way as you. I mean, I'm always thinking what I can do, where I can be, what I can do to better myself, the company, every single little thing, what video I can do, what podcasts I can do, and especially during times like this, like you said, if we are all in lockdown, if they shut down the state of Florida, well, what are we going to do? Okay, let's plan ahead and maybe we're going to do more podcasts and we're going to have to, because everybody's going to be a lot more Zoom calls and stuff like that.
Right.
And
Zoom calls, telephone calls. Yeah.
And more video from home, stuff like that. It's just whatever you can do to keep your business going and thriving and get ahead too. Because unfortunately there is going to be a lot of small business that shuts down. But we as business owners too have to figure out our next move. I kind of said it was like a chess game where, especially during this time, you have to figure out your next move. You can't just sit still, curl up in a corner, and have CNN or Fox News on in the background scaring you. You got to keep moving forward, so.
Whether it's true or not, you need to have a plan, execute on the plan, stay calm, move forward, stay safe. Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah. So, and my next one, I've been asking everybody too. Everybody asks about your past. So I want to ask about your plans for the future, whether it's business, life. Where will Shawn Yesner be in the future? Who will you be?
Another really good question. Part of the story that I didn't tell. So when I built the firm in 2004, in 2006, I brought on a law partner. And this was right at the beginning of the Great Recession. And he and I built a law firm that ended up being about 50 people, millions of dollars of revenue per year. we started absorbing different areas of law. So although I still stuck with the real estate aspects of it, we saw that a lot of our clients were getting into foreclosure because they were getting divorced. So we absorbed a family law attorney and brought him on board. We saw that a lot of our clients were going into foreclosure because they were getting hurt. So we brought in a personal injury attorney, absorbed that into the law firm. And so we ended up building about a 50-person law firm. We had, I want to say, about 10 attorneys at the height of it, again, making millions of dollars of revenue. What happened is typically what always happens. We started getting into disputes or arguments or disagreements over the direction of the law firm, and we ended up splitting and going our separate ways. And then that restarted Yesner Law by myself, which is what I have now. So I don't have the desire to recreate that beast. I don't want to run a law firm that is that big, but I do want to grow. And so my vision here is a law firm of at least 4, maybe 5 attorneys, including me, and then as many staff as is necessary to support those attorneys, whether we're in this building or not. Maybe we're all remote after this pandemic, who knows, but a small but substantial law firm that can create a legacy, whether my boys want to become attorneys or whether I end up selling the thing and using that stream to retire, or who knows, that part of it. But I really what I sort of want to do is create law firms within the law firm. So I want my associate to have her own book of business that is then supported by the law firm so that she doesn't have to do the admin. The next associate that comes on board, same thing, have them have their own book of business that they're working, but we're all collaborating together. I think one of the biggest frustrations for me is I don't have another attorney that I can bounce ideas off of unless I give them a call on the phone. So to create that type of a law firm where we can work together, we can work with each other, we can bounce ideas off of each other, we're all creating our own independent books and making the entire law firm more valuable. That's probably where I see the law firm going, is something, not too big, but enough that I can take some vacations and sort of relax a little bit, get my student loans paid off, all that kind of stuff.
Awesome. Yeah, great answer. And so, last question, this is what this show's all about. What exactly do people need to look for when hiring an attorney, and why should they choose Shawn Yesner as their attorney of choice?
Well, I think we covered a lot of it already. Make sure that I'm not going to tell you the answer because I want to make your money. I'm going to tell the answer that I think is best for you, and it may not be good news, but I'm going to shoot it to you straight, and we'll figure out a solution. And I'm not here to blow up the deal. I'm here to get the deal done if we can. And when looking for an attorney, again, it comes down to due diligence. Check out the attorney, check out if they have reviews. Do they have, everything that I've said, the book, the podcast, the YouTube channel, what's going on social media. Do your due diligence in terms of the attorney that you're hiring. If they offer a free consultation, which most do, especially in this area of law, take advantage of the free consultation. Meet with the attorney. What kind of feeling do you get from the attorney? Again, I know that I've done a good job when people leave here and say that they feel like a weight's been lifted, or they feel like they can go home and sleep tonight. That's when I know the consultation went well. I may not get that client, but at least I know the consultation went well.
Awesome, Shawn. Yeah, this has been great, man. A lot of great information. I really appreciate you coming on. Last thing, where can people find and connect with you?
Everything revolves around the website. So it's yesnerlaw.com. Yesner has one S in it, Yesner law.com. Everything revolves around the website. So the social media links are on the website. The podcast links are on the website. The blog is on the website. Now, the podcast is also on all the majors. So Apple and Stitcher and Spotify and all the artificial intelligence ladies love me. That you can find that everywhere. But I think everything starts around the website. Even if you want to contact me, have questions for me, there's that contact button on the website. That'll come directly to me as well. So everything starts at yesnerlaw.com, and it sort of bicycle spokes out from there.
Awesome. Everybody go check that out. And Shawn, I really do appreciate you coming on, man. This was great. A lot of great info as far as real estate and construction, what people need to do. I learned stuff as always. That's why I love doing this show. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate it. I learned something too. I picked up a couple of questions that I'm going to insert into my repertoire here.
There you go. There you go. Yeah. Thanks again. And thanks, guys, for listening. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Awesome, man.